For a little bit of paid promotion here, just so you guys know, Gamefound sending me some information about Castles of Burgundy. You can check out the video here, as you well know. Castles of Burgundy Special Edition is now live on Gamefound. I've talked about it several times already on other videos, including from last week. If you have any interest in it, it is still going. And if you want to check it out, you can see everything that they're offering from a deluxeification standpoint to make Castles of Burgundy more aesthetically pleasing, more beautiful, and maybe even potentially easier to hit the table in the first place. So if you want, link is down below. Let's do this. Yo, Chris, Liege Games. Felt like Monday all day because didn't work on Monday because of the holiday. But we are already at it again. Crowdfunding hotness. What's out there? What do you need to know? First to know, put it out there for you in the first place. This is a slightly smaller week, but it doesn't mean I'm going to skimp on things and details and discussion. So, that being said, Patreon, view stuff. Also, side note, beginning of video. I'm putting out more reviews. There's going to be a lot more reviews in the next week or two of things that I want to be talking about. Those are always my lowest videos. Across the board. No questions asked. I want you guys to want to watch my reviews. What would you like to see out of a review from me that will get you to tune in to the reviews as well? What I'm looking for is more consistent engagement across the board like I see with some other channels. Not like super huge channels, but just, you know, okay, if I have 5,000 subscribers, am I getting 1, 2, 3,000 on everything? Not the, 200 here, the 3,000 there, although 3,000 is still kind of rare for me, but that's the sort of thing. Now, hopefully, this setup is going to be part of it. Hopefully, I will be having a little bit of a setup in front of me in the near future, so I can have sort of the dual camera shot between things as well. But again, what else would entice you to watch things like that that are not talking explicitly about the crowdfunding or the news or something like that? So let me know in the comment section below. I am open, I am eager, I am just receptive to feedback from that aspect. So I read every single comment, every single one. I'm slow to respond lately, but bear with me. That's it. Ramble over. Let's get into the games. Look, first up is Runescape from Steamforged Games. $400,000 already, less than 12 hours funding. And again, this was an interesting test of the market. And this is going to be a comparison that some people are going to like and some people are not going to like, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. I think this is going for more of the Cthulhu Death May Die Zombicide-esque feel. And let me be very clear when I make that comparison so nobody can put words in my mouth. I think that's a good comparison because they are saying, you know what, guys, especially with Bardsong, they said, let's take a step back. Let's make it more simplistic. Let's make the gameplay flow. Let's make it make sense. Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's make the game and the IP match. And I think that was part of the problem that they ran into with Horizon as well as Dark Souls, that trying to fit the board game to match the video game was not a good fit. And now, again, the question is going to be with this, how RuneScape-y are you going to make it? Or are you going to incorporate RuneScape elements, but stick with a tabletop first mechanistic approach? That's what I hope. And knowing some of the pledge levels that I talked about last weekend with this, it really doesn't surprise me, and I'm really actually sort of okay with it. The gameplay all in is only $154. Right? It's more in line with like Devil May Cry than the Resident Evils or the Dark Souls of the previous. Even Bardsong or Monster Hunter, significantly more. Bardsong not as much more, but more. Now they have a deluxe level where you can get the exclusive stuff with the deluxeifications, including the playmat and coins and extra upgraded materials. But if you don't want to pay an extra $50 for that, you don't have to. Now, again, I will argue that some of these red miniatures are not really the nicest miniatures. I mean, Steamforged is, I'm not worried about the miniatures from Steamforged, but it is what it is. A few quotes from a few people you might recognize there. And then we get into the crux of the game. Open world, dungeon crawl-esque, encounters, campaign-driven, with bosses on a 3x3 grid that you're going to be managing and navigating. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit more complicated, and I'm not sure how much gameplay mechanism first or RuneScape incorporation first it comes into. Crafting gear, baking things, creating recipes and cooking, and trying to keep true to what has made RuneScape, but okay. Now, I don't really like this. Want to know more about the gameplay? Scroll down to the gameplay section. Well, I'd like to see the gameplay section at the top. I'd like to see that at the top. But I'm going to get all of the exclusives and why get it now right now. Which, again, the why get it now I have no problem. But why get it now followed by the gameplay is what I prefer. Following up that, here is the deluxeifications that I mentioned, including the neoprene boss boards and the game board itself. Discount as well, which if you have been following Steamforge, I often poo-poo it when I hear other things, but Steamforge has a reputation for if you're getting it, it's only through their web shop, and it is a secondary cost through there higher than what the Kickstarter pledges are. It is. They have been very consistent, very stable from that aspect, even with the ones that haven't always been the hottest of sellers. You're going to get, I believe, now it says here unlocks on all 10 days of the campaign, and they say card, and I'm assuming it's just like one gameplay card that they say has actual gameplay value, and you get to choose them, essentially, and vote on them each day that the campaign is. Now, this says duties and taxes included. So, the controversial, you're paying for somebody else's import taxes, is going to be present here for the non-EU side of things. How do you feel about that? Again, take that for what it is. So, I'm not going to comment too much more on that. Here are the other exclusives, including this whole expansion. So, take that for what you will. Now, I like the fact that they've got different characters, not just 4. But, I mean, you essentially have 10 different characters there, plus the different 3 bosses, 4 bosses, 5 bosses, a bunch of bosses. I think these maybe are mini bosses, maybe. I don't know. Now, then you get some of the, I don't know if these are bosses or mini bosses, but essentially then you get those followed by the Mega Dragon here at the end. So, I'm not sure what the difference is mechanistically, but it breaks down everything else you're going to get here. Again, you're telling me all the components, but I still haven't seen the gameplay section. These are the 2 exclusives right here that go with that expansion. Unlocks, gameplay all in that I already mentioned. Which I feel like, as well, if I'm not paying somebody else's VAT, it's 10 or 15 bucks, that's my shipping. So maybe it'll be reflected in the shipping down below. This comes with 3 expansions already, plus the other expansions. So you're getting essentially 4 expansions for $150. That's not a bad deal. Say what you will about Steamforge and some of the stuff, but that's not a bad deal. Now, how big are these expansions? And they each have just one boss with, 100 cards in them and slightly different location boards. Again, the expansions look kind of cool. I don't mind the expansions. The expansions probably look cooler than some of the stuff in the core box. I don't know who any of these people are. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I played RuneScape. I dabbled once or twice in it, and it was kind of a thing, but I mean, that was probably when I was 15. Like, I'm not one of those people that played it 10 years ago or 5 years ago or anything. Like, I'm not gonna... I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue about any of this stuff. So, how true is it? Is that really going to appeal to you or not? Or are you looking for a slightly different spin on an easy-to-get and easy-to-play dungeon crawl? Because that's really what I'm looking at this as. And that's why, and that's where I was going with that Cthulhu and zombie side comparison at the beginning, right? Here's the little adventure thing, the unlocks that you're going to be getting, the paths. You can go click on this. It brings you to the comment section or the latest update that tells you what it is. The how to play videos. So they tell a little bit about each of the aspects there. Some gameplay videos. Again, gameplay. So I'd rather see a rule book. I don't know if we've gotten to the rule book, but at least they break down some of the different things here on the page itself. Because as much as I love watching how it interacts live, in a live simulation, I mean, at least, I want to see what's out there as well, because I'm also a very visual person. So I want to see how this goes and how you're exploring, how you're skills sharing, how you're upgrading, the side quests, the bosses, the interactions on the boss maps. I read the gameplay articles. They don't give me enough of the oomph, right? The how does this actually rubber meets the road. So I didn't see a rule book. Maybe I missed it. That's probably the biggest determiner for me. Again, as someone else who already owns too many of these, that's going to be the biggest make it or break it for me on something like this. I appreciate the videos, but sometimes videos aren't giving me the full sense of things. But I like the fact that they have the videos already on day one. Now, again, I don't think I missed it. So I'm hoping that would be the one thing that would keep me one way or the other is the rulebook. Show me a rulebook. If you've got gameplay videos made, you have a rulebook. So please let me see it before the end. But again, this is why I said it reminds me of that. 60 to 90 minutes. This is not going to be a 2 or 3 hour dungeon crawl slag. And the only other thing that I can't get off of this is if I'm going to make that comparison to those other two games, how much nuance, how much errata, how much little, fiddly, how much little pieces are going to be constantly, oh yeah, when do we do this? And how do we do that? And how does this work? And when do we... Those are the things that concern me in a game like this. Not the dungeon crawl fighting aspect. It's fine. I can deal with that however that is. But I want to know more, so I'll be following it. Can't say whether or not I'm going to back yet, but it's doing well. RuneScape. Next up, speaking of deluxeifications, almost $30,000. How do you feel about colored inserts? Now, we've seen folded space, the gray, drab, but greatly efficient and relatively cheap inserts, especially comparative to the heavy wooden inserts that often go in games or that we have been used to prior to that. Now we are getting inserts with color. So a few games are at least sponsored inserts. So we'll see how much this is. I have no idea. This is the first time I'm seeing this. Designed to fit sleeved cards. That is, that's a weird, interesting overlap. People who insert, people who use custom inserts and people who sleeve. Those seem to be very overlapping in the sense of the interested parties. No lid box lift. I know people are very concerned about that always. We were having that discussion the other game night that I had. One of my friends was like, there's a little lift on it. He's like, I would totally pull that stuff out and rearrange it so there was no lid lift. I'm like, I don't really care. I'm completely okay with that. Here we go. Here you see some of the ones that they have already licensed through the ages, as well as I would imagine that Lost Ruins of Arnak is probably one of the biggest ones on this. Maybe Black Rose Wars, Maracaibo. But I have to believe that that's one of the biggest reasons that people are backing it right now. What are we looking at here? Okay. Does it hold the expansion? It does, right? Expedition Leaders. I mean, it looks beautiful. Just the question is, do you want to pay for it? And how much more is it going to cost me than... Which is the other thing I haven't seen yet. I'm scrolling down here. This is a huge page. How much more is it going to cost me than a non-colored insert? And how is something that's massive like Black Rose Wars going to be different than, say, Lost Ruins of Arnak? Because at least with folded space, you know that they're all relatively about the same. But, I mean, look at this thing, right? Look how massive that thing is. Compared to Lost Ruins, the price differential has to be pretty significant. So it just basically breaks them all down in color pictures. Let's scroll down to the bottom here, see if we can find where we're going here. Some stretch goals here. What are the stretch goals? Oh, it's still a DIY. That's fine. Keychain, card holder, add-ons, have it by the end of the year. I have not seen the price level yet for any of these. Now here's the shipping before anything else, which is what it is. Here we go. Sample pledges. So you can mix and match, essentially. Now it doesn't tell me. It tells me the combination of Arnak and Maracaibo. The combination of Arnak and Black Rose Wars. What if I just want one of them? Single insert, so 35 euros. Two inserts, 70. Triple, 105. Now, is that any, though? I guess, maybe? No, see, Black Rose Wars must be more. Because otherwise they're saying a 2-pack is that. Okay. Interesting. E-Raptor. Branching out into that aspect of things. Check it out if you're interested. Next up, Amulet of Thrayax. Almost 2/3 of the way funded. We'll see where it goes. I would imagine that maybe by the time this video airs, it'll be funded. 2 to 6 players. Area control. Dystopian. Card-driven fantasy with strategy. Circular board there. Something definitely different we have not seen from a lot of area control games. And let's take a look at what you're actually doing. You're trying to use a combination of, and I'm not making this up, murder and counter cards to cause inconveniences and followers to gain souls on your sacrificial altar. words and sentences I did not think I would be piecing together on my life at all to win the throne. So you're trying to create a peasant harvesting engine, essentially. Stretch goals when they funded, prototype demoed, cult markers, the districts that are going to be probably interchangeable and rotatable, so increasing playability there. Let's see what else we got. A couple quotes. Pledge level is about $50 per copy. Pledge level with objective cards, tokens, and storage. It'll cost you what? Is another $17. Okay. How to play. Let's see here. Place your cult markers around the board. Start with 3 cards of each kind, and you can harvest with one of them and counter to provide additional actions, essentially. Cards will affect locations as well as the tokens there, and there are going to be bonuses depending on where the amulet itself in the center is facing, depending on the district, I mean. You can burn your cards, which allow your workers to activate and become more powerful while said amulet faces them, and you can employ other followers to do your dirty work to get more people under your command. It's going to be rotating around the board, offering various benefits like we said. And then you're going to be seeing what kind of followers you can harvest in terms of souls. And they're each going to be worth different points that you're going to be totaling up. You need to check out the rulebook here. I think that's worth it. You can try it out online as well. A couple videos from a couple people that you might recognize. And, oh, there's me. That's weird. I wasn't expecting that one. Well, I talked about it on the upcoming video last week. So, there you go. I'm gonna probably check out the rulebook, because the biggest question, on at least on surface value, it seems like it is different enough in terms of the mechanics, but with area control, how do you feel about that? The other thing, when I quick pull up the rulebook here, is that it does play at 2 players, which is a relatively difficult player count for an area control game when it's heavily area control. Now, again, just by looking over that game page, I get the sense that a lot of the other interactions and mechanisms are less about area control, so that might make it a little bit more balanced if you are only playing it with 2 people. And they give you a little bit of the additional peasants based on the amount of people you're playing with. So again, scaling it for person, and you can just kind of run through. It's not a long rule book, but there's definitely a lot of information packed in here. It's about 30 pages, but only about half of it is going to be stuff that you probably need to read through in terms of the examples and the differences in terms of the mechanics. So we'll see where it goes. Next up, Unsolved Science, Case 1, The Object. It says that it's a twist on escape room style games. So what does that actually mean? That's a science mystery, essentially what they're going for with this style of escape room game. Now, 2 to 3 hour experience, designed for adults. That's okay, fine. How does it work though? You get instructions telling you you must uncover whatever's in there via the use of, obviously mentioned, science. Okay? 3 investigations, a variety of experiments, including maybe actual experiments and data. How geeky, how, analytical do you want to get? It's a game, not school, so it's designed to be fun, it says. I mean, that'd be my biggest concern. How does it solve the science-based problems if I'm not full of science? You can use a search engine that they provide along with you with the system that they're going to be using, with including hints. Okay, great. The question is $42. Is it worth it? You get a pin, you get some music as well. $45 for, is that just an early bird? Day 1 price versus early bird. There you go. You want 2 copies of it, $84. Well, there you go. I mean, it's popular. Are you okay with it? Is it replayable? I mean, the whole benefit of some of the other ones, even though you might not like make your exact money back, is they're relatively tradable, and people who like them tend to like to get more of them. Is this redoable, especially if you're doing science, where some of these experiments might not be easily redone, or you might not have the materials necessary to redo them multiple times? Well, we'll see. It's clearly going to fund, so check it out. Next up, Deathly Thrones. I was all very much interested in this one. Roguelike card game using a standard deck of cards, a quest booklet, until it said solo. Gave me Regicide thoughts, right? In case you haven't played Regicide, great game. It reminds me more of, oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking on it. But I'll remember it later after I finish filming this. But it's a print and play game. A5 booklet size, and you play it with a standard 52 card deck. It's just giving you everything you need to do with a 52 card deck. You set up your health, your armor based on the character you chose, and you set up the dex based on the instructions, choosing your hero, the quest that you're going to do, draw, apply, and check. So you draw 2 cards. The first is your attack, the second is the enemy's attack. Add your health in, that's your attack power. Add the value to the health of the enemy, that's their attack power. Difference is the hit points that are won or lost on either side. I mean, it's straightforward. Everything will cost you $5. So if you have any interest in it, solo roguelike really card-driven play, Deathly Thrones. Next up, The Gig, dice rolling jazz game. Again, well over 50% funded in less than 24 hours. What is this game doing? 20 minutes, 1 to 4 players, choosing your instrument and going to affect how you score. Rolling dice, communal songs, and grabbing the cymbals or trying to do harmonies. Solo play as well with this, especially if you're like drumming. And exclusive content for all backers on day 1. So you guys are going to miss this out. I'm assuming they'll be available as an add-on though. Unique numbered copy, that's fine, whatever. Guaranteed quality, I mean, I hope so. So basically they're going in with all the stretch goals, or at least some of the upgrades, deluxifications, or improvements already in place. Real-time dice rolling until one person uses all of their dice. You can create a groove, solo unlocking powers, points, and combos. Quick to play. I mean, I would imagine so. I just don't see how I'm actually playing it here. That's a pun right there, in case you weren't aware. The smooth. Jazz is always described as being smooth. Anyway, hits every note. Wow, they're really going with the dad puns there. I like it. A couple preview videos here. But I see the board. I see the icons that match the dice sides, but what does it actually do? Okay. Double-sided instrument boards, song sheets, the dice that I talked about, the audience cards. What am I doing, though? Read the rules. Here we go. So if you pull up the rule book here, 6 rounds, 4 phases in each round. You roll your dice, then you score the dice, you use the audience cards, and then you clean up. So what do you actually do when you're rolling and placing, though? You have a songbook that you're going to be placing these dice into in order to create the melody. 1 die occupies each space, and until you've placed them all, you can continually re-roll. But if you're putting it in same space in the song with an opponent, and no one yields, you both have to re-roll and try again. Die placement then is going to give you bonuses or harmonies depending on where they're at. You're going to have mitigatable circumstances on said die to reduce, increase, or even change the values of the dice that are there in the first place. And then you have the ability to buy cards based on the spotlights that you have in order to get different effects. Audience cards, going to be scoring conditions as well. I don't know, I might have to watch one of the playthrough videos of this. This seems like a nice roll and write, essentially, as well as a solo game. Turksy is doing the solo on this one as well, in case you missed that up there. I like the idea of this. As a former musician, yes, I was a drummer, percussionist as we prefer to be called, because I did more than just the drums. And you can also play it with turn-based situation. Yep, there's Turksies again right there. The Gig. Give this one a look-see. I'm gonna hit the remind me button. Well, I would if I was logged in right now. But there you go. Check it out. Next up, we have Hacktivity, which is a cooperative board game set in the cyberpunk netrunner theme that we've seen a real trend of lately. Well funded already, 10,000 almost over its funding goal. Kind of launched in that end of weekend scenario last week, which is why I wasn't able to cover it, but I thought I'd cover it now as well. And let's take a look at what it actually is. This is a 15-minute per player game, co-op, solo, 1 to 4 player, where you are going through scenarios, trying to defeat viruses and hack the system to get the information that you need. You have one of several different characters which have asymmetric dex/powers that you are going to be utilizing. You are going to be trying to neutralize or take care of hostile viruses based on the board that you have in the first place, and avoiding setting off the alarm of your hacking the system in the first place. You have a main threat in the scenario you'll be dealing with as well, and it just gives you a good overview on the page itself right here. You can see the firewall cards, the asymmetry, the solo mode, the virus cards themselves, and everything else that goes along with it. The rulebook is actually surprisingly short. It's only about 12 pages. Now, there's a lot of information packed in here in the different ways that you're going to be interacting in the board areas between the boss area, the regular viral area, and the alert area, as well as talking about the different types of cards that you will be utilizing in terms of the gameplay. But the gameplay itself is rather straightforward. Draw your cards equal to the level, play 1 to 2 cards, players have no more cards left, that phase ends, and then clean up, rinse and repeat. Now, obviously, the bad guys are going to be taking turns in between there, depending on what you play and how you play them. So again, it's getting that back and forth tempo of what you're doing and how you're doing it, sort of getting that under control and navigating it to see how it goes. I think this looks like a really solid game. I just don't get a good sense by this rulebook. It's so chock full of information right now that I think you need to go over and watch one of those videos from Unfiltered Gamer or Rado to really get the best sense of how does it play? How does the flow actually occur? Because that is not as clear to me when I'm reading through this rulebook, as nice as it seems to be in terms of the examples. But that's also a lot of iconography, and so it's a little bit overwhelming at the same time that there's so much iconography. I think in an attempt to make it more language independent, but again, that's the downside of trying to get language independence too, especially when you have a game that is not as straightforward. Kickstarter exclusive Advanced Edition here will cost you $59. I'm assuming with these player mats, upgraded tokens, and a little bit of content here. Now, I'm not a big fan of the content being locked, if that's one of the main differences. I didn't look at that. Is that just the main pledge level? Small encrypted expansion. Now, why would you just buy the expansion? If this is the first time you're producing this game, why would you ever do that? That seems weird to me. It doesn't come with a basic game, and there's 0 backers right now. Basic edition, stretch goals get there, $49. Now the $59 though gets you the advanced edition. So I mean, I don't see again why you would not get that for $10 extra, which is why you only have 6 backers at that one. 7 backers here. Did I miss the early bird or something? Yeah, that's what I must have missed. There you go, early bird, $69. Or 70 US dollars and 55 US dollars, 54 US dollars compared to, let's see, what was that again? So $6 difference, $4 difference. I wonder if that's why its funding is where it's at, because you really don't see, as I noted here, the pledge levels having any amount of backers. Now again, this one has 38, but I don't need a sketchbook, so take it for what you will. Although it does not include the expansion at this lower level either. So that's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to pledge lock stuff like that. And I wonder, again, I haven't looked at this one before today, so I can't tell you where the funding is at or how much more funding is there. How much do you need the extra expansion as well? I always feel weird, again, about expansions included on the first edition. Is it really needed? Am I going to love it that much? Or am I just buying it because of FOMO? And a lot of the time, I feel like when I'm putting myself into the microscope, it's FOMO more than anything else. So, again, like I said, enough videos down here that you can check it out. No problem there. The rulebook is out there as well. So if you want to glimpse that and get a better read than I did, check it out. Next up, we have Court. This is a trick-taking game. This has a different spin on it. Now, the art is beautiful on the back of these, but it's a slightly different twist on things. 3 to 5 players, because trick-taking doesn't really work well with 2. But you have essentially numbered suits, 3 of them, 1 through 10. And the higher card wins the trick. But the lowest card in the hand, when you play it, sets off the power of whatever that numbered card is, as all 10 cards have different powers. Also, whoever wins the trick then redistributes those cards among the 4 players afterwards, and that is known as your court, the cards that sit in front of you. And their court can score you both positive and negative points at the end of the round, depending on what you have or what you don't have. But then that also affects the next round, because that court of cards sitting in front of you is also your hand for the next round. So then, rinse and repeat. So sometimes you want to win the trick, sometimes you want to play your power. How you change the power dynamic there depends on what cards you're going to get in the next round. So just seems like a cool style of game. I would check out Taylor's Trick Taking. He does, I mean, like the channel says, it's trick taking. A couple of quotes here from people you recognize. A few stretch goals here as well. I mean, nothing. This is an indie card game, right? So take it for what you will. But $15 for a copy of it, it's a good deal. It's something different. You're not going to be able to play it with a regular deck probably because of the 10 cards. Although, I mean, you probably could. But, you know, just like with Regicide, you support Badgers from Mars, you support these guys too. B5 Productions. Court, check it out. Then we have Thornraver, Batter for Solus. Strategic area control tabletop card game from 1 to 2 players, mostly. There is a 3 to 4 player mode, but the problem I have right now with this, and the problem with it, and why it's probably not funded already, even though it's got $4,000, which is great, is there's nothing on the page about how it actually plays. 2 to 4 players, vast array of game variants, solo to team play. That's the most game description you're going to get right there on the whole page. I'll tell you right now. Tells what's in the box, gives you a breakdown of the components, gives you some pledge levels here with the deluxeification and the ultimate edition, a couple of videos on how to play, phases of play, but if you want essentially to know the rules, you have to click on this. There's not anything else on the gameplay page. This is it. Everything right there. You just saw it in that quick of a fix. So if you pull up the rule book here, you get a better sense of it. And it's a big rule book too. It's 24 pages, chock full of stuff. Area control, 10 different regions that you're going to be trying to control here through various card-driven gameplay. And you're going to be moving around, acquiring new areas, using your army, as well as the bonuses that go along with each sections to try and control more and more. The art is actually relatively pleasing, but I've never heard of this game before. And there's not enough on the page to make me, say, why do I get this over something else? Why? And that's the more enticing thing that I need, because if that more stuff was on there, I don't think this would be anywhere close to not funding. But give me some of the highlights from this 24-page rulebook on the asymmetry, the special attacks, the special abilities, how you win the game. I mean, there's no even information about that on the page whatsoever, or barely any. The battle, how do you battle in here? You don't tell me how you battle. I mean, again, some of that's in this little bit of video here, phases of play, but there's nothing on the page that talks about it. So I need a little bit more on the page itself. But there you go, Thornravers. Next up is This Didn't Happen, a relaunch. I remember this one actually the first time around. This is a very small card-based game that just launched, and it's got $4,000, and it's well-funded. And it's a time-traveling 1 to 4 player card-driven game where you are utilizing your cards to travel one of the 3 different time streams, or eras essentially, trying to find symbols to match the apocalypse at the end of those time streams to, prevent the apocalypse from actually happening right here. And you have the ability to manipulate, to go back to your time machine, but after each round, the time machine moves forward, so you have less of these available to you to go to on a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis. You're just going to be going there, altering them, and then taking whatever action you have, playing the event cards that are drawn randomly, and then experiencing whatever happens on the tile that you're on. Time moves forward, and then rinse and repeat until the game ends. Either you make it to the end and match all those symbols that you need, or you run out of time. It's online, you can try it out. Asymmetric symbols and powers there with each character. Each character has 2 different sides. This is indie card gaming that I loved covering. I backed an Empty Throne last month, and I'm tempted on this one already. If I was signed in right now, I would be clicking save, because I'm tempted by this, because also the price point is pretty good. $39 including shipping. You know what? Whatever. It's not a great price, to be very frank, but it's also not going to be preventing me from backing it price point wise in this, because this is, a game that's not going to get made otherwise. This is a game that's not going to be picked up wide at retail, so if you want it, you're going to get it here. There you go. I didn't cover this last week if it launched. I'm not sure if it just launched and I just missed it or whether, but Rathskellers is launching another crowdfunding campaign for their Sunnygeeks table. And without even having to scroll down, because I looked at this page earlier, because if you heard me rant a few other times, I'm looking for a table. The lowest table is 1,200 euros. The higher pledge, without any add-ons, is 1,500 euros. So if you're like me, I understand spending that much money, but I can't justify it right now. I can't. Because I'm looking for the 2x2 or a 3x3 table to sit right in front of me for you guys with this new studio. And I can't pay that much money for something like that. I've got a fold-out table in the garage that may be coming out shortly this weekend and putting a cloth cover on it instead, right? And that's going to cost me squadoosh instead of, 1,200 euros, and I'm going to get it sometime in the middle of 2023, because they're saying they can make 70 tables per month. There's already about 400 backers, and if they make 70 tables per month, you're looking probably, quarter to middle-ish, at least right now if you back it here. because the number of backer you are is the queue in which you are getting into in terms of a line. So plenty of other stuff. Again, they say discounted price on Gamefound here, but there's also other from like board game tables for almost half this price too. Like their minimalistic one is about 699, 700 bucks. So check it out if you want, but it's probably going to price me out. So I'll pass, but I at least like talking about it in the, hope someday maybe. Speaking of deluxeifications for your board game non-gameplay stuff, Unmatched and their storage accessory collection just launched. And as expected, I mean, it's, doing gangbusters. Now, this is not going to take up less space. You can chuck all the minis, toss a couple of the inserts, and put some plastic baggies and consolidate boxes if you really want to do a better storage small size in your collection. Not individual, because, I mean, they were comparing it to like a Wargamer tabletop, one of those sort of situations, which... yeah, if that's what it is for you, I see no problem with this. But I don't think it's necessarily going to take up a whole lot less space. It's just going to give you slightly more organization, so you don't have to dig out one box. You can dig out individual pre-packaged storage collections of said characters. So it says this secures up to 12 boost box, which means you could get 24. I guess it kind of shows you right here what it actually looks like a little bit. I mean, I guess there you go. When I look at this, it doesn't look like it's going to be consolidating it that much, but I guess really what it is it is doing that. If you have two battle boxes essentially as well. So gives you the breakdown of what it's going to do there. Backpack as well. I need another backpack like this actually. We have one, but it's, it's surprisingly small amount of games when you're traveling fit in a box like that. I mean, it's shocking actually. So alt promo cards. I mean, I think that was the concern that when they said they were doing some promo cards was, were they going to be additional gameplay? But it looks like they're just unused arts. So neoprene mats, art print pack. That's actually kind of cool. I actually kind of like the print pack there, the one in the back with the 9, not any of these big ones, because you don't need text on those. People can figure out what it is. But I like the small minimalistic ones right here. Coins, don't need it. Again, there you go. Get in the game. What is it actually, though? You add your add-ons. So what are the add-ons, though? 4-pack is 20 bucks. Battle box is 60. Whoa! Okay. Well, it's definitely going to be smaller size, but you could buy almost the whole set of Unmatched for the whole battle box set. So take it for what you will. No wonder it's raised $120,000. Okay. There you go. I mean, Restoration Games. There's a market for it. You'll see it. There you go. Sare, third time around. And again, the most interesting thing on this when I pulled this up was its funding goal is 40,000 euros still. Didn't fund either the first 2 times, and so that's a super high funding goal for something that's failed twice already. And I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I've talked about it previously, sort of a resource management card-driven game where you're trying to build buildings, produce, and then construct more. First person to build the monument of the city wins. I don't know. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I still don't think there's anything wrong with it. But it's clearly not getting to the level of funding that they were hoping for internally. So I'd love to see a breakdown of where are all these costs coming from and why do you need 40,000? But now again, 40,000 may be a true funding goal. And that may be the bitter pill that is being swallowed here of saying we're not going to try and falsely lower it. That would be the only thing I can think of, at least from the top of my head. Why back it? Lots of French channels down here at the bottom. But I don't get a good sense of what it's actually doing, right? You have all these cards, you have all these different building types. But when I look at it too, it breaks it down, but I don't get a good flow of it. And you really need to go to the rule book for that, which again is good. And 13,000 euros is a lot of money, but 40,000 is a ton more. You're only a third of the way there. And I mean, plenty of time, but we've all seen the hype and the roller coaster ride that if you don't fund in the first couple days with a smaller project without a lot of hype behind it, it has trouble. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes, but I have concerns that third time is not going to be the charm for them either here, but Sare, check it out. Next up, we have a reimplementation of a reimplementation? Yeah, R&D Games here is doing Keydom's Dragons, which is a reissue with a reskin of Aladdin's Dragons. Now set in Keydom, 1 to 6 players. already funded, less than 24 hours. So let's see what we've got here going on, because I'm, not even familiar with the base game, the original from 2000, well before my time. So what do we got going on here? Keydom, as they say here, first worker placement in 2000, and rethemed and redone as Aladdin's Dragons, 3 to 5 player game. Fairly well thought of overall. So what are you doing though in this actual game? Now this is a worker placement bidding sort of auction style game with area resolution. What you're going to be doing is you're going to have these numbered chips and you're going to be placing them down into one of 3 areas, at least in the original version. That's what you were doing. And each of these areas is resolved separately that are going to get you different actions, different rewards, different abilities that you can utilize to your best effect. The bottom part of the board was where you were getting your treasures. Easy, right? The middle part where you're gaining said special actions that are going to allow you to gain other treasures, artifacts, and spells at your disposal. And the top part is where you're going to be that bidding style of things to use your treasures to get better treasures, essentially. Treasure meaning the most generic sense for essentially currency or money in the game. So those two terms are compatible or interchangeable in that sense. Most artifacts by the end is going to win. So obviously it's a much prettier version, updated version. I mean, how different is it? I mean, it's well thought of, but it's a 6.9 from 2000. I mean, that's still relatively pretty good. I mean, the newer stuff obviously re-implements things better. So the question is, apart from being prettier, what else is different? Okay, we got all this stuff. Here's all the glam. Here's all the glitz. And here's all the costs. I don't see why to get it now, though. They're not doing anything additional. They're taking it for what it is. They're not trying to overload it. They're not trying to make it anything different. So again, do you want a copy of this game, essentially, is what it's going to be. What is the price point on this? $57. And if you want to get it at Spiel, you can get it at Spiel. R&D Games, there you go, check it out. And here we have Toongeon Fights. Cooperative Toongeon crawling deck building game, 1 to 4 players. Just launched, about 20% of the way in. Let's see what we've got going on here. Again, this one I talked a little bit about last week. Cooperative dungeon crawling, but done in a deck building manner, a la something like Thunderstone Quest. Solo cooperative and scalable. Scalable is a big concern when I have something like this, is how easy is it, or how is the difficulty managed at different player counts. It gives sort of the townsfolk tussle vibe with the artistic style, but going for a completely different gameplay aesthetic. Bosses, here's the box and a playmat included. So how are you playing this though? You're grabbing your asymmetric character with their deck. You are then drawing dungeon cards to be played sequentially from one side to the other. You are allowed to equip cards that are in your hand. You're allowed to play cards that are going to give you immediate bonuses or effects. As you go, sort of like Thunderstone Quest, you're going to be traveling through these various rooms and seeing what happens. Effects, monsters, there's a market that you're going to be buying stuff from, fighting the boss when you get to the end or when it shows up, and seeing how you are going to be interacting with it, because there are several different bosses here. Several rule books right here, and then a little bit of gameplay to see how it actually sort of flows in the actual mechanics. A few quotes that you can check out as well here. Why back it? I mean, this is an indie game, right? Funding goal, I mean, we're going to see where this goes. Funding goals, stretch goals here. Got to get funded before you can hit the stretches. They appear to be just all new item, new gameplay cards, essentially. $12 shipping. What's the core price, though? I don't think I saw that when I was scrolling. $39. So, I mean, that's about right. That's about what I'd expect. It includes a playmat. So if you're including a playmat as opposed to a board, obviously, I think that's a relatively good deal. And I guess I just haven't heard about a lot of this. I just didn't hear about this very much prior to it. And the big thing I don't see on this page is, what is this doing slightly differently? What makes this unique? What stands this apart from Thunderstone Quest, for example? Is it the aesthetic? Is it the room exploration? Because, I mean, you're lining up cards. Even with Thunderstone Quest, you're sort of dungeon delving in sort of a spatial manner. So I think it's missing some of that, but we'll see how it goes because it's less than 24 hours in at this point. So that's it. That's the new studio. What do you think? Trying to get a little bit of a table setup or something here, and maybe something a little bit overhead-wise, so I can do a little bit of more in-depth stuff with hands-on. Especially so I can do maybe some hands-on reviews, because I hate doing the B-roll stuff. Because I always have to do it separately, and then I'm always trying to integrate it. And if I could just do B-roll while I'm doing the actual review video and pan one back and forth, it'd be so much easier. But then I need to get a camera, and I need to get a way to hold it up, and all of that stuff. So It's all going to be work in progress, but that's where you can help out just by watching, clicking, and subscribing. Help me, and if you really want to help, Patreon's always open too. So that's not cheap equipment stuff. So it is what it is. I'll manage either way, though. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making it to the end. That's all I got. It's Friday. Stay classy. Hopefully a short week has been good for you as well. I'll see you around. There's more where this came from. Wha-bam!